the two things I see people projecting out into the world on a daily basis is I'm lost, I'm discouraged, I don't know what to do, I don't have direction. What I learned in that time is like what employers care about generally is more about experience than about education. Education and schooling are not the same thing. Job hunting and writing resumes is just an exercise in marketing, and most people don't know how to go about it properly. So much of what our reality is and what our perception is based on how we present ourselves to the world, for good and for bad. I see the benefits, like when I'm being more positive, when I'm trying to serve people to more intentionally, it returns back to me. I find that friends send me more referrals for my business, things like that. So much of what I see people when they're struggling, they lack intention. And so the more intentional you are, not just for your own sake, but for other people's sake, it tends to mirror back to you. There's so much negativity and darkness in the world that we need some people to pierce the darkness with their own unique brand of light. It's important for me personally to strive to be that person.
Welcome, dear listeners of the Oliver Shearer Show from around the world. Thanks for clicking on the button and watch this video. And I'm Oliver Shearer, and my goal is to find people from around the world that share with us mind-altering and expanding topics, knowledge and insights, so you can move forward, so you're triggered, so you can find other ways of living a happier and better life, or just be entertained. The topics I'm normally talk about are near-death experience, spiritual awakening, from depression to expression, ancient history, mystical topics, could also be Viking lores. But today I have Braxton Wood. He's a career coach to VIPs, executive coach, business consultant, and podcast host of the podcast that is called the Unscripted Success Podcast. Braxton Wood is homeschooled, and we got to talk why is it and what did it teach him and how did he make that a successful path? How is education different to schooling, and why he's coaching people now to find a new job, if it you being in a good position and you just want to have something new, or you're unemployed and you want to get back to the job market. And not only that, we also get a little bit into spiritual, mystical topics, a little bit of everything. It was a very good talk to me and very interesting. So it's kind of a little bit a spiritual and business combination talk. So I hope you're going to enjoy it. And without any further ado, let's get started. Welcome, dear listeners, to another Oliver Shearer Show episode. Today I'm talking again over the pond, as I usually do. And today it's with Braxton, and in his email he how you call it? His signature is your chief career guide. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you got that right.
Yes. And it's going to be a very interesting podcast for me on two sides. Once I have a video audio delay. And second one is I have not really done so many business talks, but when we connected and had our introduction talk, I'm like, wow, this is going to be great. I love it, and I love it on different levels. And let's see where it's going. It's not scripted as usual. And so, welcome, Braxton, and how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and you said you just overcame a cold, so we are perfect. So
I did. I'm grateful that, I'm glad that it's over with.
So he normally doesn't have such a deep voice, or no, he has. So let's get started, and I just go with my standard flow to kind of ice break and get to know you. And also for the listeners, I've got some good feedback lately. People like that. So if you would describe yourself in 3 words, adjectives, what would those be? And why would you choose those? Like a little story around them, so we know
Okay, 3 words. The first one that comes is countercultural.
Okay.
Um, Peripatetic.
What is that?
It means I um am addicted to change in a way. Is
Okay.
the best way I can describe it. Change comes easily for me. I embrace it rather than avoid it. Um, Third word. I guess independent maybe is the other one I can think of.
Yeah, that will fit to the talk we had, right? When you shared a little bit of your
Mhm.
backstory.
Yeah.
And yeah, countercultural, peripatetic, addicted to change. I think that's probably something more people will understand. And
Mhm.
independent. Yeah, we go into those, I'm sure. What is this countercultural? Why?
I think in a number of ways. So the first reason I would describe myself that way is because of my upbringing, and kind of just my life as an early, teenager, childhood, and the things that I did and experienced that are different than most. That'd be the main reason why. Is like, and then I think also if you look more at the modern landscape of society, I think there's a lot of opinions and a lot of things that are mainstream or have the appearance of being mainstream, but they're not. And I tend to kind of push up against those as well.
You push against, which then comes to addicted to change. Um, yeah, how do we bring that in? So, what is the main theme for you when you say addicted to change?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would explicitly describe myself as addicted to change, but I get bored easy, and so for that reason I tend to pursue change in a way. And so and that shows in a lot of different areas of my life. For example, I've been married 15 years. I have 3 children, but we've moved and lived in as almost many places as years we've been married.
Oh, wow.
And
With 3 kids.
yeah, and yeah, with 2 to 3 kids. Most my 2 oldest were the ones that experienced that the most. But I was always searching for something just to feel satisfied with, and it as I've gotten older, I've realized that, you gotta be content and happy with what you have a little bit. Learning to not chase change quite as much as I used to. Um, I think that can cause us to always be seeking out the wrong things in some ways, and that's something that I've learned as I've gotten older. So,
And that opens a lot of doors for questions already. And then you have the independent. I know from the introduction we had. How would you bring that up in some words for the listeners?
yeah, so I know you and I will talk about this more in depth, but I haven't set foot in a classroom since I was 11 years old. I'm a product of homeschooling, for lack of a better term. So I never went to public school after I was 11. I use the term homeschooling loosely because my mother didn't teach me at all. I just read out of books myself, and so I kind of had the discipline to just take interest in topics and subjects myself, and then I pursued them. Um, and so that has carried with me in a lot of ways into adulthood, where I I never went to school. I never tried to seek validation from any sort of institution, whether it be an employer, a school, or whatever. I just kind of charted my own path. And so that's why I say independent as well. I'm a big DIYer. Everything I would rather do something myself than have to or pay someone else to do it or things like that, which is as a business owner for me, that's been another thing that I've had to learn to delegate a little bit more. Um, but like, there's things I've done around my house even that I'm not too quick to hire someone to do for me. So it kind of shows up in very various facets of my life where I would rather learn to acquire a new skill. I would rather acquire a new skill than have to depend on someone else to do it, is the best way I can describe it.
Wow. I know that feeling. I mean, I went through the school system with bachelor, master degree, all that kind of stuff, business engineering. And sometimes I like, was that the right path? You did another path. None is the right or the wrong. It's just whatever you
Mhm.
do. And I know from schooling that if you have a business, learn to outsource. Just do the
Yep.
just do the things you're really good at and you love. I mean, depending on who you listen to. I mean, I don't know if it's Tony Robbins, Tim Ferriss, and all these kind of motivational coaches and business coaches have interviews and also talks where focus on what you love. And you just mentioned that you got a little bit better in outsourcing,
Mm.
but where do you think that comes from in your case, that you want to learn to do the things rather than pay someone else? Was it because you didn't have the money for doing it, or is it another motivation?
That's part of it. I think for me, this we're probably going to unpack a lot of stuff about Braxton's like childhood and his upbringing, but I think part of it for me, I think us as guys, we seek status in some way, and we want to or in validation. We want to feel validated in what we do, even if maybe we don't get that validation from others. Then we at least want it within ourselves. And I think for me, just because of like the family I grew up in and later experiences going into adulthood, um, being perceived as someone that um, is knowledgeable in what they do and is an authority in what they do, that has been a big thing for me and been important to me. And for a while, it was probably unhealthy almost, how much I sought after. I never wanted to be famous. It wasn't anything about that, but I never, being a homeschool kid and not having any life experience, any schooling to compare your experiences to, causes you to kind of be in a little bit of a bubble, a little bit in a vacuum. And so not having anything to compare to, I probably have earlier on, especially, I think I overcompensated trying to be that much more of an authority in whatever it was I did. So I think that's the reason where it comes from, is just there's some wonderful, great things that I credit to the fact that I was very disciplined and educated myself to some extent. But there was also some things that maybe aren't bad, but they created some bad habits with me, and so that would be one of them. Is just over caring too much about having status.
I don't think that has something to do. I mean, in your case, it might have the fact that you were homeschooled or schooled yourself. That's where it comes from. But when you said it, we validate and the status, even if it's not coming from the outside, it's kind of like we want to have it for ourselves. And I see that so much. And
Exactly.
right now I'm back at school. I'm doing apprenticeship as not carpenter, I think jointer or cabinet maker
Okay.
or something like that. Whenever when you translate, and I can see compared to last year, we had like a 20-week introduction course, and now we have like twice a year, 5 weeks, we go back to school, and I can see that last year I was getting much more irritated when I didn't move forward. And now I just try to step back and say, whatever. It is as it is.
Yeah.
And of course, I also know a lot of the machines we have at work. So in case if I cannot finish, I can hopefully take it to work and finish it there. But I try to step a little bit back because I can see this drive. Like I want to, be validated for myself. I want to validate myself in the mirror, basically. I can do it, right? So,
Yep.
so I can relate to that. And I guess a lot of people, I don't know if it's a man thing or perhaps it's a masculine thing. And I live in Denmark, so a lot of women are very masculine. So I can also see that in women, I guess.
Yeah.
So
I've always seen that to some extent. Like, I think it is a masculine thing. It is a male thing to some extent. We're the hunter gatherers. We're the breadwinners. Like that, we're kind of. My belief is that we're biologically wired to pursue those kinds of things. And so, but it's human nature to seek. I think it's human nature to seek validation, and one of the ways that happens is, whenever we accomplish something, we get a hit of dopamine. Like we feel the hormones start raging, right? We get excited, and that's what motivates us, is to continue doing that pursuit. Um, but it can become unhealthy if you make that the focus, I think. And so that's the difference that I've recognized.
yeah, but the habit can, when you talk, swiping TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, give you the same, right? And then you just continue there. Exactly. So, but let's go a little bit to, what you shared with me when we had the introduction call, because I haven't really talked to anyone which was a school dropout. to call it like a homeschooled or a self-schooled. Boy, you were sharing the story with me. So can you go back to that for our listeners to kind
Yeah,
of share like what happened? Why are you homeschooled or self-schooled, and what age were you, and how
yeah,
did you do it?
absolutely. So it all started. So in here in the States, I was in grade school. So I was in fifth grade, and I'm the oldest of six children. And my brother, just younger than me, he's not even 2 years younger than me, quite. He was getting bullied very severely in school, and so my mom took him out of school and started homeschooling him halfway through the year. And when the year ended, here I am, 11 years old. I just completed fifth grade. Um, she asks me, your brother's at home. I'm already homeschooling him. Do you want to be homeschooled too? And like any, you know, sane 11-year-old, I'm like, yes, take me out of school, please. Like that's how it started. Just yeah, of course I don't want to go to school anymore. Like no way. So that's how it started. And then something in me switched where even at 11, 12 years old, um, I felt like, okay, if no one's going to hold me accountable, even my mother wasn't holding me accountable very well, then I have to hold myself accountable and have the discipline to see this through. Because even at that age, I was really afraid I'd screw up my life, which is weird. Like, I don't know if many 11 or 12-year-olds think that way, but I was very conscious of the fact that, you know, these these next 4 to 6 years are going to be really important for me. And so I need to do it right as best as I knew how. And at 12 years old, you don't know how very well, but so I just did. My mom supported me. Um, I use the term homeschool loosely because, like I said before, my mother didn't really teach me. I kind of just got the books and then learned on my own, and then whipped out the quiz book and I did the quizzes and all that kind of stuff. So that's how I kind of continued into it. But then when I got older as a teenager, I did more or less of the same thing, but it was through an institution, an accredited school, and so I could have graduated school at that age, but I just didn't finish because I thought it was a waste of time, honestly. Um, like to the concept of having to choose a class that isn't something that you may want to do for your career, for your life forward. I just thought that was so silly. So to have to pick a bunch of classes to get that qualification that you've graduated, it just seems so arbitrary to me as a teenager. So I was one course away from getting my high school diploma, but I didn't finish it, so I never got my diploma. So I like to joke that I'm a homeschool dropout.
Now we have the school dropout
Um,
completely covered here, right? The
yeah, yep.
homeschool dropout. Now, while you shared, question I didn't have last time was, and your brother, did he continue being homeschooled as well, or did he go back to school eventually?
Oh yeah, we all did. All six of us
Six?
kids. Yep, continued through the whole thing. Yeah, yep. All five of my siblings were homeschooled as well. Yep,
Wow. So are you the oldest, or?
I'm the oldest.
Wow. So you basically showed your mom and dad that it's possible, so that your parents were encouraged to try it with all six kids. That means your mom has been home, right? Taking care that you're
Correct.
learning. And were all as disciplined as you were and as focused on.
Not even close. My I don't want to disparage my siblings, but they were not as disciplined at all. And my mother, the reason why my mother didn't teach me was not because I was disciplined myself. My mother didn't teach me just because she had her view on homeschooling was very open-ended, and forcing her kids to learn was not something that in my opinion, wasn't something she was comfortable doing. And so she'd rather maintain a relationship with them than try and be the hard-nosed teacher to them, I think. And so probably a little bit of lack of discipline on my mother's part as well, and that carried down to my siblings too.
Yeah,
Honestly.
I'm just surprised. I thought like you have a brother now, six kids, homeschooled. I don't think, yeah, lack of discipline, but I can see the difficulty. I mean, you're a parent, as you said, you have three kids. I'm a parent.
Hmm.
I can just imagine homeschooling and being like the strict, teacher, and then being the parent. It's of course we can learn to balance both out, but I can see it's
Hmm.
very difficult. You have to be very conscious and let's say, empathically advanced or just an advanced person be able to actually do
Yeah.
that in a healthy way, so you don't create
Hmm.
friction. But I can see when I look at you, it seemed to have worked out.
At least for myself, I'd like to think so.
We're not going into your sisters, siblings, because that would be what is it, backstabbing or bad mouthing or whatever you say. I have no idea where they are. We can take it off of the show afterwards. I'm curious what they're doing because I've never heard that. I know
Yeah.
I had another lady from the US which has her kids also homeschooled now.
Mm.
Three kids. Also because of bullying, I think, to remember. So now
Hmm.
didn't finish the school because you thought it's a waste of time because it's not something you want to pursue. So what did you want to pursue? You were what, 16 at that time or
17, 18. Yeah.
17, 18?
Yep.
Uh,
Hmm.
you shared with me that you started working at the age of 16, is that right? Or
Correct. Yep.
and how did that come to happen?
It was pretty simple. For me, being someone that was homeschooled and had a little bit more open schedule than what most kids at that age have, I had a lot of different options available. And so to me, when I talked about the subjects I was learning being a waste of time, what I didn't see being a waste of time in place of it was having a job, was working and earning money. So I worked at my local grocery store, my local market. And I was more employed and making more money, and it wasn't a ton of money, but I was making more money than all my friends, and that afforded me certain opportunities and certain luxuries and freedoms that some kids don't have. And that was a doing that at that age, I think, was a better education for me than anything I could have learned from a book at that period. One of the biggest things that I learned doing that was being 15, 16 at that age. I learned to interact with the general public at a large scale basis, but also work with a lot of adults. And so, like, it's with all my friends in school, me having a job, I'm all the people I'm interacting with and working with, all my coworkers are adults. And so I learned to interact with adults on a functional, practical level way earlier than what most kids do. Um, and that was huge for me. And I think that made me, there's the stigma that homeschool kids are very awkward and they're socially backwards a little bit. There's that stereotype, and I don't think I would have been that way anyway. I never was like that even in my early years as a 12, 13, 14 year old. But being 16, 17 years old and having spent a couple years interacting with adults at that level even made me less awkward than I think what a lot of kids that go to school are. I see kids, and even in this day and age, where they can't hold a simple, basic conversation with an adult and they're 16, 17 years old. They go to school. You know what I mean? And so, like, I don't know. That's one of the biggest things I've recognized early on as an adult is like that kind of was a huge blessing for me in a way. On top of being able to earn money and I got to buy a car at a young age and all that kind of stuff. That was great, and it was great being a teenager having that luxury. But the thing that served me going into adulthood was the fact that I spent so much time around adults learning to work and be part of a team. It was huge.
Yeah, I can imagine while you share about being interacting with grown-ups and working. I don't remember how I was when I worked. Also around 16, I guess. Newspapers and a little bit here, a little bit there, helping my dad cleaning. But sometimes when I see other 16, 17-year-olds working, they're kind of awkward. Like many of them, not really knowing what to do.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's today's age because when you're 16, you basically grew up with YouTube and TikTok and Facebook and all these things
Yep.
in front of the screen instead of communicating with the people in front of you. I don't know if that's something to do with that or because I'm in Denmark and it's a different culture. It's not better or worse, it's just different, right? So you see that. But also when you say were not like this awkward young kid, did you have a lot of friends being homeschooled or was it just like you're very closely connected with your siblings now, like your little band of six doing everything together, all the birthdays and whatever, bowling and go-kart weekends, and I have no idea what.
This is a great question because the answer is probably not what you would expect. So, um, so early on, one of the other big blessings that happened to me during this period of my life was that I relocated, and so because of my dad's job. So when I was 13, 14, 15, that's when I was like in junior high here in the States. And I had one good friend that was able to overlook the fact that I was homeschooled because the stigma was very, very like prevalent. So like no one ever gave me the time of day. And I went to like I'm conservative. I went to church and stuff and didn't really have any friends at church or anything like that. I was in their mind the weird homeschool kid, even though I didn't behave weird. They just a lot of people assumed that. Um, so I had one good friend, and that's all I really needed. So I was fine. And then we relocated to another state for my dad's job, and we moved in the summer, which I think was actually key because a bunch of people when you move there in the summer and school's not going on, and you're meeting people at church or out just doing whatever, and making friends during the summer with people. The topic of school never comes up because you're not going to school, and so people didn't realize that I was homeschooled until the school year started. But by that time, I had made friends, and it was all good. Um, so that was a huge thing for me, and then that's when I got that first job and all those sorts of things. In terms of what my relationship is like with my siblings, I've again always been independent, sometimes to a fault. I'm the only entrepreneur in my family on both sides of my family for generations. I'm the only person that's ever owned a business full time for the last four generations, and even further back. Um, and being the disciplined, self-learned person that I am, my siblings don't relate to me very, very much, quite honestly. They all, if they have a job, they all have a traditional job that they just went and applied for, something like that. And my parents have always kind of been the same way as well. So something happened to me that I look at that and I think about what was different. And the only thing I can look back on is like I learned to be self-disciplined, self-directed at a very young age. And frankly, I always questioned authority, even as a teenager. And so, like, I never went along with the status quo or went along with anything just because someone who perceivably was smarter or more authoritative than me says so. I questioned everything, and I still do, and I think that's an important trait for anyone to have. But yeah, but that's what life is like. Is I'm kind of and it's not a in a bad way, but I'm kind of the black sheep in my family for that reason. And I'm not sure if I would even change it because, I have my own family, I have my own children, I have my friends that relate to me and understand me. I think when we start taking our thoughts and our lives and our intentions in a certain direction, it causes us to attract what we're pursuing. And if people are not on that train with us, or they don't relate the same way, or if they're not in that same pursuit, if their pursuit goes in a different direction, then nature takes its course, and um, you're only going to be so close to certain people. At least that's what I've observed.
Wow. Hmm. How do I continue from here? There's so many. I thought of the black sheep, and then you mentioned it. I thought like, black sheep is probably
Mhm.
a little bit a hard term, the odd one, like the square block in the round blocks or whatever.
Mhm.
So you say you really like it's not just like with your siblings, like your father's and your mom's family generations back. You're different in the way you work.
Mhm.
You're the disciplined one, while the other ones are more normal, I would say, kind of like.
Yeah.
Whenever you go on the personal growth path or the business growth, whatever, then discipline is one of the key aspects, at least. Um,
Yeah.
and you say you relate with others, and you know your choices and wishes and direction will bring you other experiences, other people which are more aligned with you. Where do I go? Let's put it there. How the discipline. which is not your family's trait. You said you were 11, 12. Do you have
Mhm.
any other memory which could have pushed you into that self-disciplined way? Or was it just the fear of like, oh shit, I'm 11, 12. If I don't do it, then it's going to fuck up? Or did you read books, have friends, or a father or mother of school friends or a teacher, which were kind of putting some kind of seeds in you for the discipline?
Mhm.
What, if you remember, what was it, and why do you think it actually worked besides the fear?
That's a great question. Yeah, I thought about this a lot because I've tried because most people need some sort of catalyst to direct them or drive them, right? There's something that has to happen. And usually it's another person. And so I still don't know if I have a clear answer to this, but what I've observed is me being left to my own devices largely was the motivator. Like that being in that when people are in a space where everything's unknown, they tend to shrink, right? Even at 12 years old, for some reason, like I'm nothing special. But even at 12 years old, I could see the writing on the wall if I allowed myself to shrink. And so that was enough of a motivator for me to try and do the best I could just to grow, you know, mature and eventually find myself in a career. With that being said, when you brought up, the question of a teacher, the so I stopped going to school after 5th grade. So I had a 5th grade teacher, but my teacher before that, my 4th grade teacher, was, as far as adults go, was probably one of the most influential people in my life at that age, especially. Just a very Miss Elgren, and she and I were Facebook friends even to this day. Um, she was just the most kind-hearted, caring, intentional teacher that I had in the short period that I was attending school. Um, and so she she definitely didn't do things like she would never went through the motions. This woman, she was very intentional with her class. She had a year with us, and she made the most of that year with her students. Um, and so I grew to appreciate reading from her because she didn't read like she had reading time with us as a class where she would read from a chapter book and things like that. And I always loved the books that she picked, and so that made me want to find other books and things like that. And as I got older, it my interests expanded and I wasn't reading fiction anymore. I started reading self-help books because I started feeling like there was something else to be had outside of fiction. So between my experiences with Miss Elgren and giving me that passion for learning, and then 2 years later being a homeschool kid left to my own devices, I think they're like equal parts get credit for the path that I took as a kid. And when I think of it that way, that makes a lot of sense why maybe things weren't as my siblings didn't experience that same influence. My brother, just younger than me, never had a teacher that he liked. And then all my siblings younger than him never even went to school because we were homeschooling by the time that they were of age. But yeah, those are the two things: being left to my own devices, and then having one influential teacher that actually cared and didn't just do her job was huge.
Yeah, it's kind of like caring, like the unconditional love we hear, right? It's like just loving and caring for someone no matter what they do. And if you are in such a person's presence, that can really influence, right? So you kind of get self-love. Uh, I think you think also self-love and self-love, was that also one of the drive, right? You didn't want to shrink because you said you saw the writing on the wall already. If you let yourself shrink.
Yeah, for me as a kid, very at a very young age, through a lot of experiences in my relationships with my family, at a very young age, I realized that um, we had a lot of generational baggage throughout my family, going back generations, and I wanted to be the person where it stopped. And so one of those things that needed to stop was shrinking when you face a challenge in your life, or um, just trying to coast through life, not rocking the boat, not being intentional with your life, your career, your family. Those are all traits that I was conditioned with. growing up that I didn't want to repeat. And so that intention, me just seeing how generationally my family was something that was also a motivator for me too, I think.
Wow, you open a lot of cans here. Yeah, the generational baggage, as you say, or traumas, as I say, there's a lot of generational trauma baggage breakers when you listen to some spiritual podcasts and people which are consciously there to actually stop the alcohol, stop the whatever abuse, stop the self demolition, as your parents did with shrinking when pressure is high. I mean, I do it as well, and I can see it, and it's like there's these moments where I just want to stand up, push against it, and then there's the moments I'm like, whatever, does it matter? So you have a lot of things to mirror. At least I can see that. Today's like my mirroring day, I have the feeling. Also at school, there was a lot of situations. So yeah, so you basically stop that generational aspect of shrinking in when you can stand up. So yeah, you're not bigger than life. It's kind of like a term which is, I think it's not really good because we can do much more. So you cannot be bigger than life. I think that's what's holding back. So now with you having learned this discipline, you having learned to interact in your same age group by moving, right? Apparently through church connections, and then also working with people which are older than you. How does that help you in your life now, in what you do? Or do you think you want to go a bit more in what happened between the last 20 years, basically?
Yeah, good question. I think early on as a teenager, someone that, more or less taught themselves whatever he wanted to learn, and then having a full-time job early on, I think that set me on the path to and showed me what was possible. And so then it became my choice and it was on me to decide, well, what's next? And this is where um I, society puts a lot of pressure on our young people to have everything figured out and know what they want to do and how to pursue it by the time they're 18, 19, right? But I didn't like there was a period when I was 18 I considered going to college. I considered going to a university. And I even went and took a placement test and stuff because I was homeschooled so I didn't have a diploma they could go off of, right? I did that because I thought that's what you're supposed to do. But in thinking about it, I didn't know what I wanted to do for a living at all. No clue. I had no idea. There's some things I thought would have been awesome to do, but I didn't see the path to it. And until I saw the path, I wasn't going to invest time and money to go to college until I had that figured out. So that's what I told myself. That's the determination I came to. If at any point, I told myself, if at any point I figure it out, then yeah, maybe I'll go to college. Um, but in pursuing my career and just taking any job I could find and trying to like slowly work my way up to getting more and more money and whatever, all those pursuits that we all go through. I realized that there's a whole lot available in the world that can be used as education that you don't have to invest all that time and money for. Because again, like college is just a reflection of school before, especially high school. You have your required stuff and then you have your elective stuff that you can take and you have to pick some of both. And to me, it seemed ridiculous that if I wanted to be early on, I wanted to be a writer or an author, but I didn't see the path to it still. So that was an early ambition. Had no clue how to go about it. So to me, for me to go to college and have to take a biology class to learn how to be a better author seemed silly to me. Like it seemed absurd. And so that's why I didn't.
Definitely sounds really
Right? Yeah.
off. So you continued.
It's why would I waste the time and money to be in that class when it doesn't contribute? And people, this is when people say things like, "Well, you got to be a well-rounded student, or you got to be well-informed." Then no, like let me learn my career, and if I want to be let me make that decision. It's not your decision to decide and define to me what is well-informed and well-rounded. That's up to me. So in that period of me trying to figure out what it was I wanted to do, I wasn't I got married, I had 2 children, and that's when me and my wife moved around a lot, and it was usually for a job. Me just exploring the world, trying to figure out what career I wanted because I had no idea. And it wasn't until I was maybe 25, 26 that I figured it out. Um, but yeah, going and I worked some crazy jobs. So I worked for a bank. I worked in collections, and I hate to say it, but I was really good at it, even though I hated it. I was really good as a collections rep. I worked at a bank. I worked in the oil field. There was a month where I tried to sell modular homes before I realized I didn't want to do that. So I just took all these jobs trying to figure out what is the thing Braxton wants. And so when I figured it out, like I started like relentlessly focusing on that. I bought every book, every course, every YouTube was a new thing back then. I started watching every YouTube video I could to learn this skill, this profession that I was interested in. And for what it's worth, my interest was in marketing. Um, and so, but yeah, I spent 5 years before I figured that out, that that's what I wanted. And then when I started focusing on it, I kind of did I had the thought where, well, I know that they offer marketing classes and business classes in college, but if those things are so critical and so necessary, then why do I see a bunch of other people over here like writing books on the same topics and giving courses on the same topics? So why do I got to go to college for that? Seems silly. So that's why. So yeah, I invested in all those books and courses and things, learned marketing to some extent, and then just started practicing it in my own time. At that time, I had a side hustle, and I applied what I was learning in the books and the courses to the side hustle. Things started going better when I did that. Um, After 2 or 3 years of doing that, just learning this thing, applying it in my side hustle, started slapping it on my resume, rinse and repeat. I did that for a couple years, and until I had a resume that was pretty robust in terms of like as far as marketing goes, it was pretty robust for someone that did it themselves without waiting for any company to hire them. So with that resume, I went to a tech company. It was a tech company that was the most coveted employer in where I lived in the state. They required a bachelor's degree. I applied anyway, and I got the job. And so what I learned in that time is like what employers care about generally is more about experience than about education. And that's the thing is I hate it when people use the term education interchangeably with schooling because they're not the same thing. But when people say go get an education, what they're really saying is go to college. But those are two different things. I got a very, very good, very well versed, very broad education, but I didn't set foot in a classroom ever to get it. And that's the biggest thing that I try to raise to people now in my own content, in my own on my own podcast is education and schooling are not the same thing. You can get an education without having to go to school. And I'm living proof of that in the 25 years that I've been a working adult. I've never had a certificate, a diploma, a degree, nothing to show that I'm educated. I have something better, which is the results I get. And so when people come to understand that and realize that employers care more about results and experience than a really expensive piece of paper, then things can go better and you end up not spending so much time and resources, excuse me, on what you're trying to do. So that's kind of how things went a certain direction for me.
And I think it's a combination of both we need. And yeah, for me, me personally, I'm always going like, okay, what kind of class can I take? So I'm proving that I can do something, that I'm worth the time, worth the money. And I got a master's degree and I couldn't get a job, right? And I'm like, oh, what the fuck? And then I talk to you, I'm like, yeah, this is how you get the experience, because then you have it on the CV and you can show. You also shared that you were 2 years a photographer where you actually realized it was the marketing part, not the photography, which interested you mostly. I thought that was interesting because I also did photography and I thought like marketing is cool, but I struggled so much. Now you're coaching people, right? According to your fine title. So I see it again. Chief career guy. What are the typical um uh, yeah, how do you typically help them? What are your clients searching for? What kind of help do they look for?
Hmm. What I really help people kind of embrace and grasp is that all the solutions to your struggles and problems are really within yourself. What I find with most people when they're trying to grow their career, when they're trying to get a new job, when they're trying to even change what they're doing, they feel like they hit a wall and they think it's because they're not qualified, they don't have enough education, they don't have enough experience, they don't have the right skills. And sometimes that's the case. But what I find more often is a lesson that I learned as a marketer, which is most people that experience that struggle and that challenge are just not presenting themselves the proper way to employers. Job hunting and writing resumes is just an exercise in marketing, and most people don't know how to go about it properly. And so that's what I help people understand is there's where you think there's something wrong with you or wrong with your experience or whatever. I am here to tell people there's nothing wrong with you. You're not positioning yourself as a qualified candidate. And I show them how to do it.
Wow. Yeah, because I had 6 years of trying to apply for jobs, no success. You can imagine the self-worth going down the drain. Um,
Hmm.
did you have clients like that? And if so, how do you get
Oh,
how can you change that mindset? Because you apply, you have all the papers, you have experience, it's also practical, not just from school,
mhm.
and you don't find any job. And then you start to self-doubt. I mean, after a month or two, that's okay, but after 2, 3, 4 years, you start to self-doubt, like, what is wrong with me? How
Mhm.
what can now the people which listen now, so it's not about me, but people which listen, what can they take if they say, "Oh, I'm there," uh, or it could also be something else, right? It could be finding a girlfriend or a boyfriend, or I don't know, finding friends for some awkward people, right? Because they're different.
Mhm.
How can we change the being uh, denied or being said no all the time? How can we change that mindset in ourselves to get where we want to go? If it's a job, romantic relationship, friendship, I don't know.
Yeah. In that sense, isn't living life really just an exercise in marketing? You're present like in a dating relationship. Everyone's showing only their best cards on the first date, right? That's marketing. That's an exercise in marketing. Um, and I think that's something that I came to realize being the independent, self-learned person that I was ever since I before I was a teenager up to this point is I've drawn that thread. I can see that parallel where so much of what our reality is and what our perception is based on how we present ourselves to the world, for good and for bad. Um, and so what I help people understand, like this is going to sound terrible in a way, but like when people have me review their resume, for an example, and I'm putting red all over it, and they think some people might think that I'm being critical, but it gives people hope because when I see here's everything that's wrong with your resume, but then I tell them why. Here's why that wasn't a good idea to write it that way. Here's why you putting X, Y, and Z, this set of skills on your resume. Here's why that's not a good idea. And then I explain to them how the hiring process works, how employers think, and help them understand from almost without realizing it, they're learning a marketing exercise because they're learning how to position themselves better. It gives them hope by because most people write a resume, they don't know what the good and the bad is. They don't know what looks good, what looks bad. They don't. There's no reason why. They have no reason to understand why. So by being able to identify the bad stuff that is creating a barrier for them, they're able to then focus and identify the good stuff. And so it gives people hope. And so I've had clients where, I had a gentleman, he is older than me, he's in his mid 40s, never had to write a resume in his life because he always found a job through his network, through friends or something like that. But now being 45, he kind of hit a plateau where those networks can't give him the next jump in his career that he was shooting for. And around that same time, he was a partner in a business. And because of COVID and supply chain issues and things like that, that business had to phase him out as a partner. And so for the first time in his life, he kind of had no direction, didn't know what to do. His network wasn't going to be of use to him this time. And so he's like, I guess I got to write a resume for the first time in my life. So he came to me and he's like, you're saying that, that you can write the best resume in the world, but you refuse to write people's resumes for them. And I don't understand why. So teach me how to do it. So he went through my program. 3 weeks from starting my program, not even from finishing it, but 3 weeks from starting my program, he got a job working remotely, which is something he wanted, making more money than he was even as a partner in a business because he learned this skill of presenting himself to employers properly. That's what's possible. Like so many of my clients, this is what they experience because across the board, most people don't realize how poorly they're presenting themselves as a qualified candidate. And so it's just this switch you got to flip to help them understand what the right way to properly position yourself is.
Not why are people presenting themselves not properly? What do you think?
Because this is why I curse the education system, because no one ever taught anyone. No one ever talks about this. No one ever talks about I'm in school learning the Pythagorean theorem, but I can't learn how to write a resume. Like there's something backwards about this. That's why again I curse the education system. You're learning a bunch of things you're never going to use in your life, except for a very small subset of people, right? But we're not learning basic life skills like financial literacy. We're not learning how to write a resume that's one of the most impactful things you could ever do in your life. Not understand I don't know. I like why do insects breed a certain way or things like that? Like who needs to know that kind of stuff in all this stuff with biology, right? Like anyway. But
Yeah,
education and schooling are not the same thing.
I
I
mean,
think that's why.
there's also, yeah, I guess it's a financial literacy, how to earn money, or why do people actually buy things from you? And
Mhm.
but it's also the presentation. I was also thinking now, when you wrote the resume, at least here in Denmark, I've not really applied for jobs in Switzerland in a very long time. So, and you live in the US, so there might be some differences how the hiring process works. But here in Denmark, a lot of times you then go as one of the potential candidates for an interview. So there might be 2, 3, 4, 5 people. I have no idea. I don't think there's more in the go. There you have to present yourself again. So are you also helping the people with that, or they naturally realize going through their resume like, oh, this is bad to use, this is bad to use, I should use this instead because that's better? Will they naturally then change in a personal meeting as well, or do you give also classes there?
Yeah, great question. So it's kind of both in a way. I teach people, what I do is I break down the entire job hunting process. I break down the entire career development process and I kind of turn it into little milestones. So from the beginning of, what is your interest for your career? What do you actually want to be doing all day? And then helping people figure out like fine tuning what that looks like, and then understanding how to present themselves, how to develop the skills and experience if they need to, how to present themselves in the resume, and then how to use the resume as a tool to help you take control of the job interview, how to negotiate the job offer and the compensation pack. Yeah, I take people through the whole experience, the whole journey that they'll take. I have coaching on. But there's little things that you can do to have more control of your fate in that. So one of the things I teach people and help them understand is if you can get your resume to be a solid match for the job and present it with the right information, that makes that tends, not always, it depends on every employer. Every employer is different. But what I have found personally is that helps you take control of the interview in a way because the employer is going to see all this amazing stuff on your resume, things that perhaps they're not seeing on anyone else's resume, and they're going to want to ask questions about more about that stuff, and they won't focus so much on the gotcha questions that they tend to ask in interviews. And for a very one of the reasons I got that job at a tech company, it was a 600 person tech company that required a bachelor's degree. It was, like I said earlier, it was the most coveted employer in the entire state that I lived in. I got the job over I don't know how many other candidates because I understood how to prepare my resume and then use it as a tool to control my fate in the interview. Nowhere in my entire professional life have I ever even mentioned education on my resume, because I don't have any, not at least any education by the traditional sense. No schooling. So there's nowhere on my resume where it talks about schooling at all. Despite the fact that I got an interview with a tech company that required a bachelor's degree, they never asked me about my degree. They didn't ask, because there was so much other cool stuff to talk about on my resume that was way more relevant, way more important. And so like, it can be as simple as that. You know what I mean? But yeah, so that's what I help people understand, is like, you can take control to some extent this entire journey you're going to go through, with every career change, with every job change you're ever going to make, if you just understand how to position yourself properly. And then by positioning yourself properly, you become the authority in your craft, and you're interviewing the employer, not the employer interviewing you.
You also need to have some kind of self-confidence, self-acceptance to be able to do that. I guess, do you see also a change in the people which go through the course, that they get more confident about themselves so they can actually do the interview or instead of being interviewed?
Very much so. I had one client where she was in marketing herself, and she had been in a job for 5 years, and it was all she knew. And her company was very much taking advantage of her and taking it for granted. They openly admitted to her face that they overworked her and that she was severely underpaid. And even while I was coaching her, she got a raise. But when they told her that they got a raise, what they said to her was, "We're giving you a raise, but yeah, we still know it's way below market value." And she's like, "This is terrible." And so part of her problem was that she was so overworked, she felt like she didn't have enough time to really give attention to go, like, even finding a job somewhere else, because they worked her so much. Um, and so all of this was making her feel very discouraged and hurting her self-esteem, quite frankly. And so I kind of reminded her, and we did a lot of coaching around what I said earlier. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. You're very talented. You're just not in an environment that appreciates it or validates it, so you wouldn't know how talented you are, because you're not getting any feedback about it. So we spent a lot of time coaching around that, basically. And when it finally clicked for her is when she was like, "Okay, I need to put myself out there enough and try and get a quick win, try and get something just to tell me I'm on the right track." So she with my help, she updated her resume a few times, applied to a few more roles than she normally did. She started getting interviews. And when she started trying, that gave her the motivation and like the dopamine. She got the dopamine hit that told her, "Okay, this can work. I need to double down on it." She did. And once she made that decision and found that confidence, she ended up getting she got to work from home. She increased her salary by, I think, $25,000, and she was able to buy her first home for the first time. So, but it all stems from, like, trusting and betting, being willing to bet on yourself at first, and then get that quick win to be able to realize that you're onto something, to realize that you are capable, you are valuable, you are qualified. You're just in an environment where you're not hearing that, and you're not experiencing anything to tell you that, and so you start to question it, start to doubt it. But if you can get ahead of that, I find almost always people find they're always successful in their job hunt if they do that.
It's kind of like you help people to find kind of like courage again on self-acceptance or self-value, to look at
Yeah.
themselves in a different way. I don't think everyone, I mean, as you said, you had other people which were like partners and so on. I guess they have some kind of self-esteem there, but someone which is overworked and pushed down must feel like not really the best person. So you help them also psychology wise there. We talked a lot about discipline in the beginning. How can people learn to be more disciplined, which say, okay, I can see my family is not disciplined, I never had a real teacher, or we didn't realize we had a teacher which wants to help us.
Hmm.
What can we do to be more disciplined? Do you have anything you have seen during your life why people are disciplined and why some are not disciplined?
That's a great question. And it's funny because I actually don't view myself as a very disciplined person. I am being the free range homeschooled kid that I was. Like, no, I had boundaries where like where needed, like where it for the sake of my safety or whatever, right? I had those boundaries, but I was more of a free range kid than most. And so I had the luxury and the curse in some ways as a kid growing into a teenager of always kind of being able to do whatever I wanted to do within reason. I never really had a schedule. I never really had a ton of structure as a kid. And it was good in a way because I think that's what forced me to learn discipline, and it gave me the opportunity to really broaden my interests. Um, so for that reason, I'm naturally not a very disciplined person. And so I've learned to be disciplined and I've found things that are effective. Um, and that's why I teach people it now. So to answer your question is how can someone be more disciplined, right? As someone that's not naturally disciplined, this is what I've observed in myself. Um, I live by my calendar first and foremost. If it is not, and I don't mean like a pocket calendar. I mean that goes on my calendar on my computer because that's where I spend most of my time is on my computer. I'm a business owner. That's where I spend most of my time. If it is not on my calendar, it does not get done. And so that it puts me in a habit of where only things that I'm committed to and I'm passionate about or whatever end up on my calendar, right? Um, so that's one thing. I've also in the last year I've been adopting more of a mindset um, level of type of discipline, and it's something I've been coaching my clients on as well. Something I've learned, I think Tony Robbins did this exercise. And so maybe if you're interested, Oliver, maybe we can do this. But like, I would
Okay.
invite you to look around the room you're in and like identify everything that's red in the room. And then maybe list off like 4 things to me,
Okay.
if you can.
So without looking at them, so one thing is the red light of my speakers, which are not turned
Mm-hmm.
on. The red background of a stone painting with a black panther, a red twisted candle, and then there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
orange red stuff like my Kindle cover or the light here to the right of me
Mm-hmm.
and the
Okay.
red button
Now,
here.
can you close your eye? Yeah. Now close your eyes and try to name something to me that was blue in the room.
A broken lamp.
Broken. Okay. Can you name
Yeah,
like 3 more things?
3 more things.
You don't think so? Okay. That's exactly my point. What
Yeah,
we
yeah.
focus on is what we attract, right? And that's something that I've learned that I kind of was exercising, even though I wasn't conscious of it throughout my career and throughout my upbringing. What we focus on is what we attract. So just like you couldn't name all the blue things in the room with you because you were focusing on the red things, so it is with our mentality. And so if we keep what I find with a lot of job seekers, especially, and what I do with coaching in my content, a lot of people will focus on the negative and hammer on the negative and continue to complain and gripe about their situation. Well, if you're going to put that energy out into the universe, if that's what you're going to focus on, that's what you're going to bring back to yourself. So what I help people understand, what I've been practicing even more intentionally the last few years, is that I want to be a force of positivity and inspiration and motivation to people. But to do that, I need to be that for myself because I'm very naturally a very cynical person.
Hmm.
Terribly. I'm super cynical and super it's bad. Um, but as I've focused on the negative and tried to focus on the positive things because I know that that's what I attract if I do that. That's the key to a lot of things. And so going back to your question, how do you help people not get discouraged? How do you help people find that self-esteem? It's by not focusing on the negatives of it all, not focusing on the bad things in your situation. It's by putting the good things out to the universe. So there's something that um, I've discovered something called the 369 method, which is basically if you're familiar with like scripting, it's a scripting exercise. So what the 369 method says is, what are your aspirations? What are your ambitions? What do you want to attract to you? And every day you write those things down. You write them down 3 times in the morning, 6 times in the afternoon, and 9 times before you go to bed. Whatever the thing is, that's what you write down. And you do it every single day. And what that forces you to do is to spot the blue things, so to speak, and not focus on the red things. And by doing that, you're attracting the positive things to you and not focusing on the negative. So that's one exercise that I do with people to help them, because all they want to do, and it's human nature. We as humans are designed to seek out the negative, to seek out threats, because then that's how we know to avoid them, right? It's human nature. We're wired to do that. But if we limit ourselves to just doing that, we're always going to be stuck in a scarcity mindset. And so what this scripting method does is open our mind and our soul to more of an abundance mindset. We're going to attract to ourselves what we desire, what we deserve. So that's something that I help people do without all the, saying that the law of attraction, with even all that stuff. It's a good exercise to just help people focus on the positive and not obsess over the negative. So that's another thing that I do.
Yeah, and you mentioned law of attraction, which was twisting in my head, floating there to be asked. Of course, also Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. I think it's similar, or Joe Dispenza's work. It's all about having something written down where you want to go, what you want to have, and see that every day. I think Joe Dispenza had like a little picture with a drawing, and then the feelings and the emotions you want to have in the work or whatever it is, relationship. And you look at it kind of, and so you remember yourself. Writing it down, that's another thing, like by writing things with your hands, they're somehow better memorized. So if you meet new people and you write the names just with your fingers on your leg, for example, will help you to remember the name of that person better to some degree, instead of just saying it once, then you forget it. And it's also, so the other question I have connected to that is, what if you're just there and like for years and years, I try to figure out what it is. You mentioned you didn't know what you wanted at 17, 18, 19, and you just went from one job to the other, from industry to industry, position to position. It's really interesting. But if someone is like 35, 45, even 50, is at the point like, what am I supposed to do with my life? I realize what I did so far, the job, relationships, it's not me. I did it because whatever, the religion, my parents, the school, the culture setting kind of hypnotized myself into this trance where I thought this is what I need to do. And now I'm standing here, and for 2, 3 years or 5 years, I'm just, visualize what you want, go for it. And then you're like, yeah, but what is it? How do you help people with that? Because I'm standing a lot of time there. I'm like, yeah, it would be nice to have this goal, right? This north, so you can go in that direction.
There's two things. So I do another exercise. There's a book written by Jim Collins. I told you, I've read a lot of books, Oliver. There's a book written by Jim Collins called Good to Great. And this book was written for like leaders and business owners and stuff. But I think it applies, this concept he talks about applies to everyone. So he tells this story of a fox and a hedgehog. And the fox is clever and sly, and as foxes are known to be, and the fox wants to eat the hedgehog, but he's unsuccessful in doing it. And he tries every trick he can think of, because he's clever and he's sly, to eat the hedgehog, but it never works out. And it's because the hedgehog only has to do one thing. All the hedgehog has to do is roll up in a ball so its spines face out. Fox can't eat it because they're sharp, and it doesn't matter. The fox could trap it or whatever, but all he has to roll up. That's what Jim Collins calls the hedgehog's best in the world trait. And so Jim Collins, in his book, he talks about this exercise you can do where you do a Venn diagram. So 3 circles that intersect. One circle represents your passion, one circle represents your motivation, and the third circle represents your skills. And whatever, and each of those things, you think of all the things that you're motivated by, you think of all the things that you're skilled in, you think of all the things that you're passionate about. And when you can figure out what things from those 3 categories, when they intersect, what is that? That's your best in the world trait. That's your personal hedgehog. That's something that I help people exercise with. A lot of people feel stuck or feel idle when they lack direction. And sometimes a lack of direction stems from a lack of passion or a lack of motivation or a lack of, right? Kind of like what you said, knowing what to do. So if you could find like what your purpose is, what you feel like, if you're a religious person, what God created you to do, what the universe wants for you, the best way you can make a dent in the world, if you could figure that out, then most people would probably agree that they would pursue that. But a lot of people struggle knowing what that is. And so that's why I do that exercise with them. What are all these things? What are you all motivated by? What's your passions? What's your skill set? And then what would that be if they all intersected? So that's one thing I do. I think also in a more general sense, the pain of being idle is more painful than taking action. And so the reason why I floundered around in my career for 8 to 10 years, working in all these different industries, was because doing something was better than nothing. And for some reason, especially in this day and age, I encounter a lot of people that allow themselves to get paralyzed by indecision, by lacking direction. But it's the act of taking action and trying things that it's almost like, that's what creates the guardrails for you to narrow in on what it is you want to do. You're never going to figure out what it is you want to do, what your purpose is, unless you first take action and take a step somewhere. And if you don't like it after that first step, great, that's fine. That just tells you to go a step in a different direction. So that's something I help people understand too, because so many people, like for me, when I didn't want to go to college, I didn't just sit there and decide I wasn't going to college. I did something else that put me on the path. And I think that's where most people get tripped up. A lot of people go to college still not knowing what the hell they want to do, but they do it because they think they're supposed to. But then they end up changing their major 2 or 3 times, right? Because they skipped the decision making, the intentional part. And I applaud them for taking a step somewhere. My only recommendation would be to take a step that's less of a chunk to bite off and chew, that's less of an impact. That's why I started a side hustle to learn how to market it instead of jump into college and make that big investment. I made small investments with my time first, and I continued to pursue it. In my opinion, that's the model. That's the route you take to figure out what it is that you want, what your purpose is take little incremental steps until it stops being interesting to you. Once it stops being interesting, then you go somewhere else.
Like you just mentioned, go completely somewhere else. And it reminds me of Tim Ferriss, I don't know, must have been 10 years ago or something like that, where he mentioned that you just throw different clay pieces on top of a core. There's a core of you, your DNA, your body size, all these kind of things where you're born, but then you can throw all these different pieces, and what sticks is basically starting to create yourself. And yeah, it's like these small little steps. But I think sometimes you probably have to go into a bigger step. But if you don't really know what you do, you're right. If you're in the US, it costs a lot of money to go to school, universities. So if you just go because you don't know what to do, it might pay off a long time if it doesn't pay out. So go back to this law of attraction thing. When you say with these exercises, the passion, motivation, skills, and the 369, you're basically, it's like also attitude of gratitude or 5-minute journal.
Hmm.
Also from Tim Ferriss, where you write down the things you're grateful for and you focus on 3 things that were happening for you or were great or were nice. And I know that from my coach I had 5, 6 years ago, she said also she could see that the people, they couldn't write one thing that was good during the day. But over time, you start to actually see the things. A person keeps the door open for you. A person smiles at you. It starts with these small things. I also think it's kind of the filters we have, because our brain has to filter so many things during the day, right? Visual,
Yeah.
audio, senses, all kind of stuff. And I think it's also this, when you focus more on where you want to go, more the positive, the filters change. But when you also mentioned that at the beginning, when I asked about your family, and you said you found people that understand you, they know you, and you said people would come into your life because of going in a certain direction. Have you seen that when you as a person have evolved, like yeah, in the spiritual world you say vibrational, and for me that's kind of the best to say, because when you're really happy, you just feel like warm, and you feel like there's that kind of like a vibration in the body. Have you
Hmm.
seen that then suddenly these positive people come to you, and when you go down, that and you want to reach out to people, but you have been for a certain time not in such a good place mentally, emotionally, that it was harder to reach out to people?
Absolutely. It's funny. Like I recognize it in a more temporal sense. Like I see the benefits. Like when I'm being more positive, when I'm trying to serve people to more intentionally, it returns back to me. I find that friends send me more referrals for my business, things like that. That tends to happen. I end up on more podcasts, having very valuable conversations with people as a result of it. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's interesting to see how um, when you're intentional, and I think that's the key. Is like so much of what I see people when they're struggling, they lack intention. And so the more intentional you are, not just for your own sake, but for other people's sake, it tends to mirror back to you.
Yeah, that's great. So what is reality for you? What is this world we're living in?
It's interesting. For the last couple years, I've really decided that the world is a stage, and we're just all, to some extent, we're the fools buying a ticket to watch it. um, but there's a good side of it too. Is like I think if that's true, and however we want to define that, really, if the world really is a stage, however we want to define it, then that means that the influence that you have, um, to me, it feels like it that the influence you can have is documented somewhere. Like, again, if you're a religious person, there's the big book of life that, or whatever that is. But in some way, it's documented. Something's taking note. Other people are taking note, and yeah, call it karma or whatever we want. But I think some people will say that the world is a stage, and make it out to be a negative, and maybe it is in some context. But I think the positive is like to think if the world's a stage, then everyone's watching. So what's going to be the story you're telling those that are watching? Are you going to be someone that's intentional? Are you going to be someone that has ambition? Or are you going to be someone that shrinks under challenges? Which person do you want to be? I'm motivated by that fact. I'm motivated by the thought that people are watching. Do I want, going back to me talking about having status, is the status I want to have to be someone that is perceived to shrink under challenges? I don't want that. And I'm not the best at it. I'm not perfect. I'm not an authority in a lot of different things. Um, but I it's important for me personally to strive to be that person, because there's so much negativity and darkness in the world that we need some people to pierce the darkness with their own unique brand of light. Um, and I think when people are watching, that's what we want to be known for. So let's be known for that.
Yeah, be known for the difference. That's what's coming up for me,
Yeah.
especially here in Denmark. We have like this community, treat everyone equal, and feel like people don't really understand it. And for me, I had to go through depression and all these spiritual books, etc., to really understand what it means, because we are all puzzle pieces. Whatever it is, if it's a stage, if it's like a movie, and we are just the actor in it, and everyone can watch us. As you say, there's a book of life. I haven't heard that for a very long time. Normally I hear Akashic, the Akashic records, which has everything written down. And yeah, so we are different. So, and I think school and the society and everything wants to make us equal. And then we are forgetting basically that we're different. And you're a really nice example with the whole story here, going your own way, and trying out, trying. And for myself, I have the ideas and I'm not trying because I don't know where to go. I don't know how to do it. Like you said, you didn't know how to be a journalist. How many times I'm like, how to get there? What should I do? I just do it. And as I said, today at school, there was this one girl who's like, you speak English? I'm like, yes. And she spoke English with me perfectly fluently. And I didn't see any problem, but she just needed another person to be next to her to help her with this problem she had, because she got a package from one of the delivery services and the product was broken, damaged, and she just got a feedback, but she just needed someone to be there. So no issue. And I could just see the reflection back to me. There's so many things in life where I'm like, just try this, just try that, whatever, try a little bit of online business. I mean, that's at least 13 or 14 years ago. I had like, make a little online business. I don't know how, so I never did it. It's just taking little steps, and sometimes it's good to help. Do you take help from other people? Like you said, you want to do a lot of things yourself in the beginning, and you had to learn to outsource. But if you're somewhere and you say, I want to go this direction, and you don't find the book or the online class, do you take help from a coach or someone else? Friends?
Absolutely. And I've made, even in recent years, like I've made a lot of investments towards that. No one ever finds the success they're chasing without the influence of others, right? And that can take on a lot of different forms. But yeah, I've invested in coaching. I've invested in being in a mastermind program. I invest my time with a small group of fellow business owners so that we can share ideas and just be a sounding board to each other. Absolutely. And it's hard. A lot of people, like, it's funny, for the longest time I would tell myself, this is one of the negative, like, limiting beliefs that I had for the longest time early in my career, was like, I never viewed myself as a natural, like, networker, as a naturally super social person. And so I told myself that and let that be the reason that I never went out and met people and networked and, went to events or anything like that. It was just me telling myself. That was the only reason I didn't do it. And then when I stopped telling myself that, when I gave myself permission to be in the room with other people that I like admired, or other people that could elevate me, things started happening. You know what I mean? I don't think I'm better at doing anything in the world than anyone else, right? And so if that's the case, then surrounding yourself with people that can elevate you to improve and make you feel motivated to improve is a very, very, like, crucial thing to do. There's a saying, I forget who said it, but it goes, you are the average of the 5 people you spend most of your time with. And that's something that really, the first time I heard that, it hit me really hard, because the people that I was initially surrounding myself with, aside from my family, but like those people that I had like external friendships and relationships with, um, not bad people in the slightest, but they weren't elevating me. And it's not something I put on them, but they weren't the type of people to have ambitions, to seek to improve themselves, seek to elevate themselves. And when you're in an environment where people are okay just coasting through life, when they're okay just going through the motions, you tend to move slower. But I found like when I joined a mastermind group a year and a half ago, even as an example, like now the people I'm surrounding myself with are the people that I would inspire to be like from a from a business perspective, from a financial perspective, from a relationship perspective, all those things. Surround yourself with the people that mirror and reflect what it is that you want to see in yourself, and things go a little bit smoother. Things go a little bit faster, not without setbacks, not without hiccups, because you're going to encounter those regardless. But being in a supportive network like that with people tends to elevate you and accelerate your growth and accelerate your journey through the obstacles as well.
It's so true. I've heard that many times. And it's not just the money wise, it's, as you said, relationship, health, right? It's all kind of things. I do not know if there really was a research, because I heard both sides. Like it has only been written in books, but I think there was a research from a university looking at, health wise, overweight or very sporty, that if you're surrounded by healthy people, you will normally be healthier, you eat healthier, you smoke less, you drink less, you do more activities. If all of your friends are overweight and drink and all that stuff, it's going to be harder. So if you,
Mm-hmm.
if you have an awakening in the realization of I'm having a bad lifestyle, I'm eating bad food, I'm drinking too much, and I'm smoking, and you want to get out of it, but you're surrounded by people which do all these things, they found out it's much harder to change. Or if you want to get rich. And that's, I think that's one of the things, again, coming back to school, we don't learn. Right? Surround yourself with people which have a certain level of income, a certain level of business if you want to be a business owner. So you're kind of surrounded in the energy. And then we go, again, like, what is reality, right? So some people say if you're in a group of like-minded people, ideas are just coming. It's kind of like a frequency in the room. You don't know where the idea comes from. It could just come through you into the room, but it's just because you're together with these people, you generate this different, reality.
Yep.
And if you're with people which do nothing else than just eating chips and drinking sodas and watching movies, the great business ideas are not really popping up in your head.
Go figure, right? Funny how that works.
Yeah, so we looked a little bit at law of attraction and what is reality. You mentioned your podcast. You didn't really say anything so far on this episode. So what is your podcast about? So I think we are getting to the end soon.
Yeah.
So you can share.
Yeah. My podcast, I just launched it last quarter, so it's a fairly new one. But my podcast is the Unscripted Success Podcast. And what I do is invite people that took the path less traveled in their lives, like myself, and we kind of just discuss lessons learned through their own experiences by taking the road less traveled.
And it's available video, audio, or both?
Yep, it's on my YouTube and as well anywhere you get your podcasts as well.
Yeah, it's always like when you say you have a podcast, like, how do I say that? It's on Spotify, on Apple, on Google, on Amazon. It's easier with YouTube. There's also Vimeo, but I'm not there yet. So then, because you mentioned so many times reading, and in the intro talk, not in this podcast here, but in the intro talk we had, you shared that you were reading so much, and you realized that other kids don't read as much as you did. What are the books that had most effect to your life, that from the standpoint you are now, or perhaps that you could see that you were reading a book and after reading that book, it just, your life took a turn?
I think probably one of the more influential ones is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Great book for someone that, like, anyone that, I look at that book and think like anyone that was like me, who was raised in, a very limited mindset, who was raised in a scarce mindset, who was raised to not rock the boat. That is an excellent book for people to read to understand what's possible and what's out there in the world that you may not even realize because your limited mindset has prevented you from exploring it. Um, so I think that's a good one. A lot of my books, probably the most influential ones in my life, are probably all business books, is maybe, but the thing that got me into marketing and that really kicked my butt into, like, with my side hustle and pursuing um, my career once I figured out what it was, is The Purple Cow by Seth Godin, which is very much a book about marketing. But I think for people like job seekers as well, what it is great at is it helps people think outside the box and how to be remarkable. How do you present yourself in a remarkable manner so that you get attention? So that's a great book as well. Um, yeah, those are the two that I think, as far as influential books, and then there's the usuals: Think and Grow Rich, things like that, right? The Richest Man in Babylon. But yeah,
Okay.
those would be my books, I think.
I think Richest Man in Babylon is that one which is based on Think and Grow Rich, which went a bit deeper.
There's some similarities there, yeah.
Yeah. Where were you when you were reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, and what happened?
I think the first time I read that book was I was a newlywed. I probably had been married. Um, I started moving my family around a lot for different jobs, I think. And then, and I think because, and then like for maybe 2 or 3 years.
Wow. Yeah. Now you answered one of my open questions here, because you mentioned in the beginning addiction to change because you get bored, so you look for something new. And you also mentioned that you were searching for something on the outside, and then you learned to chase less. So that's related to Rich Dad, Poor Dad, apparently. Okay.
Mhm.
That's interesting.
That's the lesson. Yeah. And you don't really read that anywhere in that book, I don't think, but that's the lesson I pulled out of it. It helped me, because what it does a great job of it is it helps you understand the relationship you have with work and money, right? And like where you belong in the middle of it all. And so that's when I realized I'm doing this all wrong.
Yeah, now you're doing it all right, or you're just on a better path.
Doing it better. I don't know about right, but doing it better.
At least for you. I mean, there's also, I mean, we all have different experiences. As we said, we are in a movie, we are on a stage, or whatever it is. We are co-creating. We have our visions and the intermingling with the people. So I don't think every one of us has to be super rich and build all that stuff. It could also be doing less. And so some people are builders, right? Some people are meant to build. I mean, I just look at Schwarzenegger. I just look at The Rock. I mean, these two guys, I cannot think of anything else than building. I mean, look at their bodies, first of all, and they both build like a movie career and the multiple careers in different ways, right? Wrestling for the one, bodybuilding for the other, and probably some other businesses on the side, right? So these are builders, and not because they're crazy and they don't think they have enough. It's just because it's their nature. And then you have other natures like Dalai Lama, and then if you want to go to Joseph, Jesus, and all these people, they didn't create any possession. They had on what's on their body, right? And they went calmly out. So people, if you listen to this and you have the feeling I'm doing too little, listening to yourself, I guess. Find out who you are. Are you the creator like Schwarzenegger and The Rock and similar people? Or are you more like the one which is the calm and helps people to actually calm down, I guess? What kind of advice would you give to your younger self? Like, let's say after your mom comes and says, hey, you want to be homeschooled? Is that like a good age for giving an advice?
Yeah, I think one of my biggest regrets, if I had one, was that I was raised by a family. This isn't the regret part, but I was raised by a family that was very limited in their understanding and how the world works, how money works. So if there's one thing I could have told my younger self is like, honestly, it would have been something like read Rich Dad Poor Dad sooner or something like that. Like understand that sooner. Because I didn't come to learn that until like there's still lessons I've learned now in my 30s where I wish I didn't make that choice, right? And we all have regrets like that. But I think having the context of really sound wisdom, which is why I read a lot of books, having the context of really sound wisdom um, tends to set you on the right path. Mirror what other successful people are doing. And the thing is like you can define what success is for you. We're so quick to say that like it's wealth. It doesn't have to be, right? I remember I met someone through a mutual friend when I was a teenager, like I was 18, and I'm sitting here contemplating to go to college and all that type of stuff. One of the people I used to admire the most when I was that age was a friend that we had a mutual friend that I met through this other friend of ours. He was the most just outgoing, personable, friendly guy I have ever met to this day in my life. I met him when I was 18, and he was my age. This is super outgoing, friendly to everyone, I have no idea how it's humanly possible to be that well liked by everyone, and that was something I admired in him. To me, that's a huge success because I am not naturally that person at all. I try to be, and I want to be, but to have that type of attitude with the world come naturally to me is something that I wish I had. And that's what this young man who was 18 at the time that I knew, that's what he was like. That can be success. You can be that light to other people. So there's a lot of other ways to be successful besides your career, your wealth, things like that. So that'd be my advice is just whatever you define success as, if you feel like you're struggling with it, it's probably because you don't have the full picture. So where do you go get the whole picture? Find someone that reflects and mirrors whatever that definition of success is, and just eat everything up. If they have written a book, read their books. If they have a YouTube channel, go absorb all their video content. Like whatever it is, that's what I would say.
Okay, so what is success to you then?
Success to Braxton is I'm a husband and a father, and I'm Christian, so I view myself as a son of God as well. So success to Braxton is doing and living out my life the way God intended me to. Whatever purpose or whatever talents He gave me, I hope I'm not squandering them, and I hope I'm living up to them the way that with the intention that He gave them to me for, and by extension, doing that for my family as well.
Okay, and how do you know that you actually do that to some degree, that you're living with your skills and talents?
I think I think it's through one of the ways I feel like God directs me is through my desires. And when I'm allowing myself to be closer to Him is when I better feel my desires. This sounds really, really like left field, but that's the best way I can describe it. And so when I feel in alignment with my purpose as given by Him, um, I know that I'm on the right path when I feel that sense of happiness in what I'm doing.
Yeah, I
And
think,
when I'm
yeah,
seeing people's like lives change. Yeah.
yeah, it makes sense when you, again, going back to vibration, right? Feeling love, feeling passion,
Hmm.
feeling, to just feel lighter, right? Um,
Hmm.
that's beautiful. Is there anything I forgot to ask you in this episode that you would like to get out?
Ah, I just think the biggest thing I always kind of hammer on, like if there's one thing that I'm all about, it's about helping people find their way to becoming the best version of themselves, to be fulfilling their purpose in whatever way that makes them feel joy. And so I would just remind people, whatever struggle you're going through, whatever challenge you think you have, it's likely not because of something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. You maybe just don't have the whole picture. So strive to find resources to help you find the whole picture.
Yeah, get the helicopter view. Wow. That could be a whole
Yep.
podcast in itself, at least a 20-30 minute talk, how we could get there. But we have two exercises at least. I mean, I could also call like a call to action. I used to ask actually my guests if there's any call to action for the listeners. Is there anything that comes up, or did we already mention them?
Yeah, I just feel like because of the nature of what I do, like I've gotten millions of views online with my own content. And I encounter so many people that are just in the pit of discouragement, in the pit of despair. And so like the biggest thing I would help people understand is it's really just, if you feel like you're lacking purpose, then yeah, go do the personal hedgehog exercise. If you feel like you're struggling, if you feel like you're struggling finding the positive, finding the bright things in life, then go do the 369 method and spend a month, 2 months, a year doing that. That would be my call to action, because those are the two things I see people projecting out into the world on a daily basis. Is I'm lost, I'm discouraged, I don't know what to do, I don't have direction. Those are the things I would do to get started. Start training your mind to be doing the right things instead of allowing yourself to sink into the wrong things.
Beautiful, beautiful. And where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm all over the place, but if you go to braxtonwood.vip, then you can get in touch with me through everything on that page, on that site.
Super. Thank you so much for this talk. This was interesting and a little bit a mix of how I started the podcast and where I'm now from innovation and business and creativity to a little bit of the spiritual, mystical. And I hope that people like it. Thank you so much for today. And people which listen or watch it, you know what to do. Subscribe, like, comment, share, and all that stuff. So Braxton and me become higher up in the whatever logarithms.
Awesome. Thank you for Oliver. It's been great